ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Minnesota Medal of Honor Memorial Board and the Honorary Board, we collectively welcome all of you to an evening of fun, good food, great conversation, along with a few solemn and reflective moments. We would not be here tonight were it not for the initiative.
Get closer to the mic. There you go. Get right up to it.
Okay. We would not be here tonight were it not for the initiative and incredible support of the President of the Medal of Honor Society, recipient Tom Kelly, and his Navy wife, Joan Kelly. Regrettably, Joan was not able to make the trip from Boston today, and she sends her best. Also, were it not for Commissioner Larry Shelito's leadership and active participation in the administrative approval process, the memorial project would not have moved forward. In the audience tonight are legislators who strongly supported the memorial through the administrative approval process, authoring and publicly supporting bills in both the House and the Senate in the 2016 and 2017 legislative sessions in getting us where we are today. In the audience tonight, we wish to recognize Senator Carla Nelson, Capital Area and Architectural Board Committee member and strong supporter throughout the legislative process. Representative Bob Dittmer, author of the memorial bills in the House. Senator Bruce Anderson, author of the memorial bills in the Senate. Administrator Paul Mandel, Executive Secretary of the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board, and his staff, who continue to be providing critical guidance and assistance through the completion of construction and the dedication of the memorial. Actively involved honorary committee members here include Representative Kathy Lomer. Kathy. And President of the Twin Cities Honor Flights, Jerry Kaiser. Jerry. Just some of the highlights of the broad-based support for the memorial and the Society's character development and curriculum include Minnesota's first Medal of Honor Character Development Teacher Training Session was held here in Stillwater in 2014, organized by Washington County Attorney Pete Orput. Pete, I know you're here. Thank you. This last year, the chapters of the DAR throughout the state researched, wrote, and published a never-before written book of comprehensive biographies on all 72 of Minnesota's Medal of Honor recipients. Organizer of the DAR project, Bonnie Cacciati, and book publisher June Anderson. Along with, I believe, other DAR members who are here in attendance tonight, and that would include Carla Nelson, I know. 2 weeks ago, a remarkable connection with Canada and a Minnesota Medal of Honor recipient was made that will be mentioned later. Representing Canada and the Canadian Consul General here tonight is Paul Connors. Paul. Legislators and administrators mentioned and others not able to be here tonight deserve our credit and recognition. Thank you all. The third critical element in our success has been our great sponsors, who are the unsung and essential link in making the memorial a reality. Thank you, Hubbard Broadcasting, Cold Spring Granite, and Jostens. We would also like to thank Dick Anderson's family and the staff of the St. Croix Boat and Packet business for hosting this event on the Avalon paddle boat tonight. We are in absolute awe of the effort and support all of you have collectively and so freely offered and generously provided. We are additionally honored here tonight to have in attendance various military units that were indispensable in the success of last year's groundbreaking ceremony for the memorial and the Medal of Honor convention. Please stand when called. The 13th PSYOPS Battalion. The 934th Airlift Wing. And also the Minnesota National Guard. Thank you for what you've done and continue to do for the memorial. We would additionally like to acknowledge and please stand when called our Gold Star families. Our Blue Star families. The Mobile Riverine Force Association, and all other veterans in attendance. Our veterans, can you raise your hands? Can we identify you? Thank you all for your support. Two local mayors are also in attendance here tonight. Stillwater's Mayor Ted Kozlowski, I believe, is here. I know that Richard Glasgow is here, though, somewhere. There he is. Thank you. Richard is mayor of Lakeland, and not Afton. Before introducing our next speaker, please note that the head table will start the buffet line after the invocation and missing man toast. We encourage you to stay seated if you have when you have finished eating. Once the last person has sat, our program will start. The second level also will have a buffet line with the television monitor for viewing of the program. And at this time, we pay tribute to our most honored guests, our fallen brethren, our prisoners of war, and our missing in action. We need only look to the thousands of names on the trailer we passed on the way here to the boat to understand the staggering price paid in human life for our freedoms and the freedoms of others around the world. As tonight's prayer and toast is read, we think of those who we've known and known of, whose lives were sacrificed at the altar of freedom. It is with great pride that I introduce a woman who is a true champion of the veteran community to give the missing man toast and invocation, the one and only Honor Flight Twin Cities Coordinator, Jana Kaiser.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise if you are able and direct your attention to the small table with the lighted candle in the center of the room. To our fallen, missing, and prisoners of war, please know you are not forgotten, though you are unable to be with us tonight. That table in the center of the room is set just for you. Your tablecloth is white, symbolic of your willing to respond to our company's call to arms. The single rose at your place setting reminds us of the families and loved ones forever left behind. The red ribbon is what we all still wear to bear witness to the continuing tragedy of your fate as we continue to demand an accounting of you and your status. There is a slice of lemon on your plate, keeping us mindful of your bitter fate. There is salt there too, symbolic of the river of tears shed by the families and loved ones. Your glass is inverted because you are not here to toast with us tonight. Your chair is empty because you are not here to sit with us tonight. Our lives are incomplete because you are not here to be with us tonight. You were there for us. We are still here for you. In honoring you, each of you, all of you, we stand silently and face the table in your honor, your table. We stand silently in your absence. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now ask each of you to raise your glass and toast our most honored guests.
We're going to start the program, and we're going to take a brief pause on the silent auction until the program is finished. Please enjoy the rest of your meals, and I want to thank everybody for their patience. We got a little bit of a late start due to a semi-crash on 169 and 494, and a lot of people were stuck in that. So thank you for your patience. We're running a half an hour behind, and we were happy to say that everybody was able to make it onto the boat. I'm Tiffany Kovaleski, and I'm the co-chair for the Minnesota Medal of Honor Memorial, and I'm honored to be here tonight in the presence of each attendee. Tonight's event spearheads the Memorial's awareness campaign. Building a memorial and a community around it is not an easy task, but it's an extremely rewarding process. Our team consists of board members, legislators, the architects that are helping build this, veterans, schools, teachers, children, advocates, and communities. Together, we have accomplished raising almost half of our $1 million goal in the last short 8 months. This memorial will sit prominently on our Capitol Mall, distinctly under the Veteran Services Building, with the Promise of Youth sculpture intentionally in the middle of the memorial. It will serve as a reflection that the memorial is committed to educating and inspiring our youth and future generations. Surrounding the sculpture, within the inscribed walls, you'll find the 6 characteristics of the Medal of Honor that will capture the character, virtues, and values that our veterans and recipients leave with us as their legacy. Looking into the crowd tonight, it puts a huge smile on my face to see children, veterans, civilians, all fostering new and old relationships. The goal of bridging generations through the veteran stories is spreading through the veins through the state of Minnesota, and we're really happy that we might have created just a sliver of that. Our team has put forth large strides in the state of Minnesota to advocate for character education, specifically with the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation's Character Development Program, or the CDP. The CDP is a resource designed by teachers, some of them here tonight, to provide students at grade levels K through 12 with opportunities to explore the important concepts of courage, commitment, citizenship, sacrifice, integrity, and patriotism, and how these examples can be exemplified in a daily life. With the opportunity to see positive role models, the depth and breadth of our students' insight and reflection after interacting with these materials, and how we can choose to be our personal best. We hold this resource and opportunity for our youth in the highest regard. Our team, along with the Medal of Honor Convention Twin Cities, has helped saturate the CDP throughout the state of Minnesota over the last 2 years. To date, we've helped accomplish the following. We've completed 7 successful CDP teacher training sessions. 1 in June, the superintendent is here tonight with his family, and our next one in November. 17 school visits visited by 1 or more Medal of Honor recipients. We've helped create and launch the new National Elementary CDP, including 2 teacher writing workshops. Over 350 teachers have been trained in the state from over 80 schools and districts. We've passed legislation naming the CDP as one of our state's recommended character education resources. One of the memorial's main missions is to continue to build character amongst students statewide. We look forward to promoting this resource in every corner of the state, making it accessible to all educators and youth. The goal of bridging generations alongside fostering and harboring relationships on all levels reaches the core roots of the memorial. So now that we've passed legislation, implemented an educational resource, started our fundraising, we've now come to tonight, our awareness campaign. If there is one thing that we can ask every single one of you, it's to take this one thing away tonight. Are you ready? This memorial is for you. We want you to go out and we want you to spread our mission that this memorial is for you. It's for your brothers. It's for your sisters. It's a place for reflection and connection. Tonight we are connected by so many people. John has already said of all the wonderful people that are in this room, and it doesn't end there. With everyone that has helped pull tonight together to make it a success, it's also making our community a success. We're grateful for veterans like Troy Walker and Jerry Kaiser. Troy Walker is the owner of Dog Tag Furniture. He's going to New York this Saturday to be a guest on Fox and Friends. Tune in. His woodworking skills that you can see on the silent auction table with the wooden flags will be a national news story on Saturday. All net proceeds of Dog Tag Furniture go towards providing family members funeral costs for those that have paid the ultimate struggle and sacrifice of PTSD. Jerry and Jana Kaiser, who coordinate the Twin Cities Honor Flights, have donated an air flight with the one and only Jerry Kaiser. He's going to come up in just a little bit, and we're going to do a live auction for anyone that would like to soar the skies with the one and only Jerry Kaiser Huey helicopter pilot. Another thing that Jerry is doing is promoting the Thank a Vet book program in conjunction with Alan Duff. Alan and his wife were in the back over there next to the DAR table with their book, Fixing America's Shattered Politics. It's $15 for anybody that would like to help support it. Jerry and Alan are traveling to Seattle in the next couple of weeks to talk about how we can get out of a political fight and start thinking rationally as Americans, no matter what side of the aisle you are on. Knowing that the memorial pays respect and honor to our recipients and our veterans, it is the family members as civilian patriots who also support the veteran military community. Tonight, we are supported by the 2 largest donations and the raffle. We still have some raffle tickets, which we'll keep selling, that are $20 a piece, and they are provided by artist Steve Driscoll, who had painted this wonderful eagle painting. He spent the last several weeks on this. It's absolutely stunning. Tom Kelly also autographed that painting. It's valued at over $2,500. The other raffle is presented by Greg and Betsy Amundsen. They talked to Representative Detmer, and Representative Detmer told them that a great organization would be the memorial. And so they said, all right, how about a 3-night stay at Lutz and Lodges, valued over $2,000. So they contacted us, and we cannot thank them enough for that. And last but not least, our keynote speaker. Tom and Joan Kelly were asked to come on the boat to talk about their book, The Siren's Call and Second Chances. All net proceeds from their book go towards veteran charities throughout the entire country. Tonight's proceeds of the book go to the memorial, and we're very thankful for that. Whether you're a veteran, civilian, Medal of Honor recipient, or a Canadian Council representative, we want to thank you for your support. We're eager to make a difference in this nonpartisan, multi-generational community as we're committed to developing a positive growth mindset as we challenge our youth and all others to achieve their highest potential in making the country and the world a better place. It has now come time that I introduce our keynote speaker, just an ordinary guy who wants to help Minnesota and its recipients and have a good time because he loved Minnesota so much last year. I want to thank him back, new author of The Siren's Call and Second Chances, my dear friend, Medal of Honor recipient Tom Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you very much. Thanks. I do love Minnesota. I think it's my 5th trip out here in a year and a half. I first came out when they made the announcement, maybe October or so of 2015, that the Twin Cities would be the site of the 2016 Congressional Medal of Honor Society convention. And then we made another trip to see how it was going. And I always managed to combine my visits out here with a visit to a school, or more than one school. I know I went to Tallulah Kowaleski's school, and I had my picture taken with her and all her gang, and that was wonderful. Came back out here a couple of months ago and went to a place called Walnut Grove, where we did a teacher training down here, and the superintendent, Loy, is here tonight. Great to see you again, sir. So I come at every opportunity. You know, people in Boston, I'm from Boston, by the way, and I was very glad to see baked beans because when I received the Medal of Honor in 1970, there were about 12 or 13 of us received a medal from President Richard Nixon at the White House. And we were in a big circle. You saw some pictures up on the monitor here earlier. But he'd come to each guy, and somebody would read the citation, he'd put the medal around your neck, and then he'd shake hands and make small talk. In my case, it was really small talk. He came to me and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Boston, sir." He said, "Oh, do you eat baked beans every night?" And I said, "No, sir, only on Saturday." And he said, And he walked on to the next guy. So I was glad to see baked beans tonight. And they're pretty good. They really are. We in Boston also, we love Minnesota for another reason. About 12 or 13 years ago, you did us the favor of trading David Ortiz to the Boston Red Sox. And he just brought us 3 World Series before he retired. So, and he's a great American. He's now an American citizen and very, very generous guy. I also love to come out here because the law enforcement support that you guys give to our recipients and to the community is wonderful. I'm talking about the Minneapolis PD, the St. Paul PD, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, and I'm sure I left somebody out, but they're always there to take good care of us, make sure we're safe. I even have a bodyguard tonight. I can't get out of his sight, but I'll try later maybe. As I said, the convention last year was terrific. We had about 50 or so Medal of Honor recipients, and the Twin Cities really rolled out the red carpet. And I want to thank several members of the host committee from last year, particularly Tiffany Kowaleski, who was the chief of staff at our operation, and several others in the room here have played a big role in it. And I want to thank you. We had a great time. It was probably the best convention ever. And the year before, we'd been in Boston, and everybody said, "Oh, that's the greatest one ever." But I have to say that I wouldn't tell the people in Boston this, but last year's was at least as good, if not better. And the atmosphere here for us when we come, it's a real family atmosphere, and I've made some wonderful friends. I have a new family here, and Minnesota has been a great time. Let's move on to the memorial a little bit. I want to thank John Kramer and Tiffany for chairing this committee who's building this very, very important memorial, who will not only recognize Medal of Honor recipients, but also will perpetuate the ideals embodied in the Medal of Honor of integrity, service to others, patriotism. And they do that through the character development program, which Tiffany mentioned earlier. And Minnesota is leading the nation as far as coming up with new character development training programs for elementary schools. And I want to thank the legislators in the room who helped push that legislation through, not only for the CDP, but also, of course, the funding for this great memorial. The groundbreaking, of course, was last year. There's a picture in one of the programs there of breaking the ground when we were here from the convention. I want to tell you a little bit about the, first of all, there were 72 Medal of Honor recipients from the state of Minnesota, and I happen to know 3 of them over the years. One was a World War II guy named Don Rudolph, an Army guy from World War II. Another soldier, Mike Colillo from Duluth, and of course most recently Leo Thorsten, Air Force pilot, former POW who lived in Walnut Grove and who just passed away within the last several months. 3 wonderful guys. They were among the 72 recipients from Minnesota. And 72 is the same number as currently living recipients of the Medal of Honor. We have 72 living right now. And a lot of them are old guys, Vietnam, Korea, World War II. But we have 11 young soldiers, Marines, sailors from Afghanistan. And they were a real inspiration to us. When they received their medal, these 11 guys, they lowered the average age of the recipients from about 77 down to 75 or so, something like that. So we're leaving them in good hands. I want to tell you a little bit about the Medal of Honor. As I said, there were 72. There have been 3,500 or so given over the years, and there was one just awarded 3 weeks ago, a Vietnam medic, Army medic from the state of Michigan, and his medal was held up for 40-something years because he was on a classified mission that couldn't be publicized, so he couldn't get the medal. But it's been recently declassified, so he's our newest brother. There was one woman who received the Medal of Honor, a surgeon, a woman surgeon with the Union Army in Civil War named Mary Walker. And it turns out she was not a member of the U.S. Army. She was a contractor. And as a result of that, they took her medal away a few years after the war. In 1890-something, they had a big review of all the people who had been awarded the Medal of Honor. And they took away a whole bunch, including Mary Walker's. But then President Jimmy Carter in 1970s restored her medal. So we do have one woman. Every now and then there's a review made of recipients, and those who have it and those who don't have it and should have it. And this includes groups of people like Jewish soldiers, African American soldiers, Asian American, and periodically they have these reviews, and people, Hispanic, Latino, I should say, also. And they are awarded the medal somewhat belatedly. And we, just in recent years, we awarded, a medal was awarded, I should say, to Tibor Rubin, who had been a Holocaust camp survivor, came to the United States, served in the Korean War, and was awarded the Medal of Honor for that. And I want to talk about my unit over in Vietnam for a few minutes, a couple of minutes. It's called the Mobile Riverine Force Association. And as you came on the boat tonight, you might have noticed a trailer up there. It's called the Mobile Riverine Force Association Museum. I was over there in 1968 and 69. It was an Army-Navy operation. I had never worked with the Army before. I'm sure the soldiers had never worked with the sailors before, but it was a joint operation. We had about 200 small boats, about 50 or 60 feet long, with Navy crews, and there were 4 U.S. Army battalions that we supported. We worked together, we lived together, we operated together, and we would carry the soldiers around, infantry soldiers around on these small boats, provide fire support, drop them off. They'd move on to a new location, we'd pick them up and go on and on and on like that. So it was a marvelous operation, and it was unique at the time. It was riverine operations. We were on the small canals and rivers of South Vietnam, and it was a method of fighting that went all the way back to the Civil War, when they used these boats to interdict Confederate supply lines and stuff like that. But I was reading on the side of this trailer are the names of all the people from the Mobile Riverine Force who lost their lives over there in Vietnam. And there's one particular unit, Alpha Company, 4th of the 47th Infantry Battalion, that on one day in 1967 lost 23 soldiers killed in action. And we have, among the MRF guys here tonight, we have, I might even say, like a lone survivor from that operation. So I'm really glad to be back with my brothers tonight, and thank you for being here. You add a lot to the place. Thank you. I'd like to hear something from them. Let me see. That's about it. Oh, we get together every couple of years in a convention. They're having one next week down in Indianapolis, which unfortunately I won't be able to make it. I'd like to talk for a second about a book, my book, my wife's book. My wife, Joan, by the way, she was supposed to be here tonight, and we were going to go with Tiffany and Derek up to their cabin for the weekend, which we're really looking forward to. But 2.5 weeks ago, we were on vacation up in Maine, the second day of our vacation, and she slipped on a scatter rug in this little cottage we were in and fell down and broke her wrist and a couple of ribs. Pretty bad break, so she had to have surgery, and she's kind of out of the under the weather right now, but she'll be back. We'll be back. Anyway, about 3 or 4, my wife Joan served in the Navy for 20 years, Naval Reserve. She retired as a commander, public affairs officer. She's also a lawyer, by the way. But we decided to write a book. Let's put it this way. Joan decided that we would write a book about 3 or 4 years ago. And the book is a memoir, a joint memoir, alternating chapters, more or less. I write a chapter, Joan writes a chapter. And it talks about how we each took parallel paths in our lives, and those paths finally merged about 15 years ago. Ironically, she was protesting the war in Boston at the same time I was over fighting it in Vietnam. But I always thank her for bringing soldiers like me home. So, and this book, it talks about our childhoods, growing up, joining the Navy, why we joined the Navy. I talk a little bit about Vietnam. In the book, there's only really one chapter about Vietnam, because that's only probably a 45-minute segment of my life. A lot of living other than that. So we talk about that too. I stayed in the Navy for 20 years after I got injured over there. I got hurt pretty bad, but due to my teammates on the boat, including a very heroic Navy corpsman named Richard Doc Nelson, who jumped aboard my boat during the middle of a firefight and saved my life. As a result, I'm here. I was able to serve 20 more years in the Navy. They tried to kick me out because I was physically unqualified, but I whined and cried, and they let me stay for 20 more years. So I ended up with 30 years in the Navy. So we decided to write this book, and it was a nice part of our lives. We learned a lot about each other. We decided that all the proceeds from this book, net proceeds, would go to veterans charities. And we had a book launch back in Boston a couple of months ago, and we had a dinner at the best hotel reception, food, all donated by the hotel, best hotel in Boston. We had 300 people there, including the governor of Massachusetts, and we raised $65,000 for this veterans charity. And one of the people that really helped us out was, I keep coming back to Tiffany. She lent her hand, and thank you again for that. So, a great cause. I I didn't really prepare anything for this, but I've kind of run out of things to say. But I'd love to invite you to ask me some questions, and I'll try to answer them. And I can't. I got some experts here that can probably help me answer them. But feel free to ask anything, and let's get some people involved. How's that sound? MRF guys, come on. Charlie? Hey, Charlie was he was a boat captain in my unit, actually, and we were talking tonight. I had been with a different unit for about 9 months, and then we turned my unit over to the Vietnamese Navy, and so I went on R&R back to Hawaii, R&R, and also called Rest and Recreation. We used to call it I&I also, and I think you guys know what that means. But came back from an R&R, and they put me in Charlie's unit. And I was there about 2 weeks, and that's about it. And we had this big firefight on June 15th, 1969. And Charlie tells me tonight that he missed the operation. So if he'd been there, I probably wouldn't have got injured or anything like that, you know. What's going on? Huh?
We're going to do a little
Oh, I
Q&A
see.
here, so
I
then
see.
that way people can hear.
Somebody have a question?
Yes, Mr. Kelly, what kind of boat was it? I mean, I'm a helicopter guy from Vietnam. I wasn't the pilot, but I learned to fly them over there. I was a crew chief machine gunner on 2 tours there.
Wow,
and we used
thank
to
you.
support you guys
Yep.
flying down the rivers. And what kind
Yep.
of a boat were you in?
Well, I was riding a Monitor, which is, we had 3 or 4 different kinds of boats. We had what they call tango boats, which carried about 30, 35 infantry troops, and had a ramp in the front that went down and guys could file on and off. Then we had small boats that did minesweeping duties called alpha boats. They didn't carry any troops, but they kind of swept for mines and stuff. And then the Monitor was a heavily armed boat, which had, in my case, had a 105 millimeter howitzer, a couple of 20 millimeter cannons, 50 caliber machine guns, 81 millimeter mortar, and God knows what else. So that we really provided the main fire support, and the boat that Charlie was a boat captain of was one of those tango boats which carried the troops on board. And thanks for your help on the day that I got hit. It was a late afternoon operation. We were going on all day, and we'd had artillery support and helicopter support all through the morning into the afternoon. And for the last insertion and extraction of the day, they had to withdraw the air support and artillery. So we kind of knew that it was a good chance we get hit, and sure enough, we were. We were very slow, very noisy. They could hear us coming. They didn't have to be, General Eisenhower to figure out who we were. And so we always gave ourselves away. And our top speed was about 4 or 5 knots. That's going downstream, I think, too.
We have one other question over here, Tom.
Hi, Tom, over here. Dave Rattay.
Hi, Dave.
So can you talk a little bit about the training that goes on when you go into the schools and the 6 traits that you try to imbue upon the students, and then a little bit about that, and then how it's being received so far by the students that you're currently talking to?
Well, this program started about 6 or 7 years ago, before we had any of the young recipients, we were all getting pretty old, and we wanted to leave some sort of legacy behind because we knew we weren't going to be around forever. So with the help of a school district in Pennsylvania, a group of teachers in Erie, Pennsylvania, sat down with some of the people from the Medal of Honor Foundation and worked up a curriculum which would be used to train teachers so that then teachers would go back to the classrooms across the country. And to date, we've trained, I believe, about 11,000 teachers in about 38 of 39 states. As I mentioned earlier, Minnesota was the first state that they developed a elementary school curriculum, which is different You know, when you're talking to elementary school children, you say different things than if you're talking to seniors in high school. So we're very cognizant of that. And we basically teach them that, number one, anybody can be a hero. You know, you can be a hero in your own home. You can be a hero in your neighborhood. You can be a hero in your school, no matter what your age. If you're 6 years old or 60 years old, you can be a hero. You can make a difference in somebody else's life just by carrying out the traits of service to others, putting others before yourself, integrity, honesty, that type of thing, which we all strive for and don't always achieve. Does that answer your question? We just expanded that program, by the way, through an app. And don't tell me what an app, don't ask me what an app is, but I know there's something out there called an app. And it's going to be directly to the young people now through their phones and social media, teaching the same type of curriculum, if you will, or examples, that type of thing. So we're kind of excited about that. That's rolling out next month. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Did you carry that yourself?
I'm sorry, say it again.
All right, your boat, was it a Zippo boat or?
No, it wasn't a Zippo, it was a Monitor. Zippo was a boat filled with napalm, and they used that to clear the foliage. That was the intended mission anyway, to clear the foliage. We had one of I think every squadron had one, or every division had one.
This is probably a tough question, but can you expand a little bit on just how you got through those 45 minutes?
Well, I had a wonderful team. They saw that I'd been hurt, and somebody said he's dead, and I said, no, I'm not. And so, you know, they were telling me what's going on, and I was able to, issue some commands, I guess, to keep on going. It was kind of a blur, to tell you the truth. And then I got shot up with morphine and stuff like that. So I can't describe every minute of those 45 minutes, but we got out of there anyway. That was a good thing.
First off, excuse me. First off, it's an honor to be here with one of our nation's heroes. Every Navy guy I come across with, I ask the same question over and over. What's your hull number? Your hull number?
Oh, my hull number. Mike 152-1.
Every Navy guy never forgets their hull numbers, even if they're on 10 ships.
Well, I had about 20 ships over
Yeah.
the time, and I remember most of them, but you could probably trip me up on some. Oh, speaking of the book, you're all going to get a copy of this book tonight as you leave. And read it. I hope you enjoy it. And remember that every penny is going to this Veterans Charity. And if you like it, then please, you can go on Amazon and write a review, 5-star review, of course. Because that helps. It helps sales for one thing, but I just hope you enjoy it. There's a little humor in there. I managed to irritate a few people along the line, and that's in there pretty good. And neither my wife nor I take each other very seriously. That'll come through in the book, for sure. After I left the Navy, I went back to Massachusetts, and for about 12 years I had the same position that Larry Silito has in the state of Minnesota. In other words, running the state veterans programs. I retired from that about 2011. I want to thank Larry for what he's doing here.
Another question over here.
What was your initial impression when you found out that you were a recipient of the Medal of Honor, and then how has that changed you today? What do you feel about it today?
Well, I was kind of flabbergasted to hear that. The way I found out about it, I was on a temporary assignment. I was living in Hawaii, stationed in Hawaii at the time, and this was a year or so after I get injured and I got out of the hospital and all. And I was on a temporary assignment back in the East Coast for a week or two, and I got called to the phone. And of course, you didn't have cell phones and things in those days. You had to go to a little booth, and some guy in the other end identified himself as from the White House, and he said, "We need you in Washington a week from Tuesday." And I said, "Oh yeah, for what?" And he wouldn't tell me. And I said, "Okay," I hung up on him and called back. Well, it turns out that this was right after the Cambodian invasion. Some of the older folks remember that, 1970 or so. The U.S. Forces invaded Cambodia, which was a neutral country, and a lot of protests around the country. The Kent State incident took place where a bunch of students got shot by the National Guard, and all sorts of riots in the streets. So the higher-ups in D.C. didn't want any publicity about this, war stuff, Medal of Honor stuff, so we literally had to almost sneak in the back door of the White House, and they finally told us when we got to D.C. what it was for, but it was an interesting experience. They showed some of the ceremonies on the screen earlier. How has it changed my life? Still the same guy I was before, but I wear this medal not for me, but for all the 16 million or so men and women who have served and were not recognized for their service, but their service was at least as noble and had as much integrity as mine.
Tom, we just had a wonderful meal here this evening. Could you talk a little bit about the food that we ate while we were over there?
We had a lot of sea rats, but no, I thought we ate pretty well. We were birthed on in my case, on they call it a non-self-propelled barracks ship. It didn't have any engines or anything. It just got moved around by tugboats. But it was pretty good living. There was air conditioning, pretty good chow. And when we went out on operations for a few days or a few weeks, the boat captain always managed to, squirrel away a few frozen steaks and stuff like that, fish, even veggies sometimes. I thought we ate pretty well in most cases. But there were a lot of sea rations too, which is a predecessor of MREs, which I understand now are pretty good, like gourmet MREs. But I wouldn't call the sea rats, they wouldn't call them gourmet. Yeah, we had World War II sea rats, actually. This was 1970.
I think that's going to wrap up our Q&A, Tom.
Well, it's good. I hope I didn't keep you up too late. Thanks again.
So now we've come to the wonderful part of a live auction with a second seat flyover or second seat fly in the skies with the one and only Jerry Kaiser.
I'm back in the costume. My name is Jerry Kaiser. I am a pilot with the Commemorative Air Force. I learned to fly helicopters in Vietnam, and I got the love of that. I was a machine gunner, crew chief on 2 tours of Vietnam, and I got 200 combat missions. A lot of men have a lot more than that, but I was fortunate. I never got hit, but I am crazy. So I came back to the United States and wanted to get into aviation business. And I went back to college and got my commercial instrument all that stuff, and then never got into any company because all the jet pilots and helicopter pilots came back from Vietnam with 2,500 hours, and I had 250. So I forced my brother to buy an airplane because he had a job, place to live, and money. I didn't have any. So we bought this airplane right here, this 1965 Champion Sataba. That's an aerobatic airplane. And then I joined the Commemorative Air Force, and this one up here is a World War II trainer, a T-6. It's one of the premier trainers in World War II. This is the one down from that. It's a BT-13, and this is a liaison aircraft and also a spotter aircraft. And I fly all three of them, not this one. So what I wanted to be able to do is that the base rates for each one of these is 300 for that one, 200 for this one, and about $100 for either one of the other ones. So what I wanted to be able to do is that whatever you bid on them, the Minnesota Vietnam Veterans Charity is going to pay ever those rates. So I don't want anybody to get a free ride for $5. So what I'm looking for is the people to bid on what kind of airplane they'd want to fly in. And we have, if I'm not having to fly that particular one, we have pilots at South St. Paul Airport, and we do that. So
Jerry, let me make sure I understand this right. We're bidding on 4 different flights, right?
right, you can fly any one of these airplanes. I have pilots and myself to fly them.
So tell me the 1985 Champion. Let's start with that one.
1965 Champion.
Well, 1965, sorry.
That's an aerobatic airplane, and I fly it out of South St. Paul Airport. We come over here. I did not fly underneath the bridge, but I really wanted to. That is illegal. And it's a fully aerobatic airplane, and if you want to go fly on that with me, I'll give $100 to anybody who wants to do that. Money comes here.
Anybody want to raise their hand and pay $100 to fly on the 1965 Champion? We got one in the back. Anyone going to bid that up to $125? Got any bidders for $125? $150. Where's $150? Raise your hand so I can see it.
All right.
All right, we got $150 for the Champion. Anyone else above $175?
Now, the Citabria, that's aerobatic spelled backwards.
I can't do that math or alphabet. Anybody at 175, or should we sell it to this guy back here at 150? We got that guy back there at 150. 150. At the checkout, you can take care of it then, and we'll make sure to get you the information. Congratulations. That'll be a fun ride.
Now, my next airplane up the way there, that's an L5. That's actually built in 1941, and Commemorative Air Force has had that for many years. I fly that airplane. It's a sweet little thing, and I fly it right out. In that particular flight, we'd fly out of South St. Paul. We'd fly up over the bridge here and around St. Paul, down to St. Paul and back down to Fleming Field. It'd be about a 35 to 40-minute flight. It costs you.
Anybody got $100 on the Stinson? That guy that was back there for the Champion, are you going to do $100 on the Stinson? Yeah.
Okay, go for the Stinson, no problem.
Anybody 125 on the Stinson? A question. I don't know what that question was. Something about what?
I'll do 150 if I get a ride in Emma to the
Oh,
airport.
she's talking about my 54 Chevy.
Will you throw that in for 150?
Yeah, I get that.
All right, 150 with a ride, adding a ride with Emma to the airport for the Stinson. Anybody higher than
lives way out in
150,
the wrong part.
175? We probably keep Emma in the deal. This lady really wants to go on Emma, so I think we should sell it for 150.
That's my wife's car, though, I think.
Well, will she give you? She's in, I think. All right. Tell me
All
about
right.
the next one. Let's
These
go. How do I
This is
say
a
that? Tell me about that.
BT-13. That's one of the BT is basic trainer that they flew out of actually South St. Paul during World War II, that and Stinson biplanes out of there. Now, whatever anyone wants to bid on that, again, if we rent that out and somebody comes up and wants to fly that, it's commemorative Air Force, we charge them $200. So anyone in the bid anywhere, tell me where they want to go. I'll see what we can do.
I think we should start that one at 200. Remember, everyone, that somebody is paying for this, and who's paying for it is also a nonprofit. So we need to at least start the bid at 200. Is anyone in? 200? We got 200 for Matt Hansen over there. He came to the front to sit for this, so somebody better bid him up. That's what you do in this, you know. You bid up, and then he might, if you bid 225, he might bid 250.
So what happens is that the Minnesota Vietnamese Charity is giving giving that money, and we'll pay for these airplanes.
Anybody at 225? Is that the same one Harrison Ford crashed?
Negative. That was
Negative.
That was the BT-13. Now, he did the best he could do it on that. He could have killed himself.
All right. Going once, going twice. Two what? What? 250. This guy wants to fly a
250,
plane.
okay.
Matt? 300. Woo!
Well, Matt, you could go up to the...
Anyone?
If you wanted to, Matt, you could go up to the T6. That is the premier trainer.
Are you going to bid on the T6 back there? Maybe? You guys want to duke out between the two of them and we figure this out?
One of them go for the T6 and one of them for the BT.
I think so. Anybody
Okay.
more? Are you guys more? Matt, you're at 250. What? He's at 300. If Matt takes that one, will you take the other one for 250? Anyone want to outbid that? Anybody interested in bidding these guys up? You know, they might come up if you come up. You just got to get in the game. All right. Going once, going twice. We've got 250 for the Vultee to the guy in the back and 300 for Matt in the front. Congratulations.
So I need to get your names and your addresses and your phone numbers.
We'll take care of that at checkout. And
Okay.
you just raised a lot of money for the memorial, so thank you. Thank
You
you
bet.
so much, Jerry. And we're going to turn it back over to
How
John.
much did I raise?
I can't do that math. Anybody do that math? It was close to $1,000. We're close to $1,000 there. We're pretty good.
Everything else?
Our silent auction, ladies and gentlemen, has closed. It has not closed.
In 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes, it will be closing. I stand corrected. Yes, we have,
At our closing remarks, we'll announce the raffle.
in our closing remarks, we'll announce the raffle winners.
Next directions, not meeting calls.
Pardon me?
Next directions, no meeting calls. We're short on time.
Oh, yes, oh, sure. Yes, I wanted to mention a rather historic event that occurred here just 2 weeks ago. The Canadian Consul General of the Upper Midwest was represented at the field offices of the Customs and Immigration Services here in the Twin Cities, and in that ceremony indicated to us that there were 117 Medal of Honor recipients born in Canada, one of whom is dedicated, whose name is dedicated to the new field offices of Customs and Immigration Services here in the Twin Cities. And representing the Canadian Consul Office here tonight is Paul Connors. He is, I think, identified himself earlier, but it was a little-known fact that we're here in Minnesota honoring a Minnesota recipient who was born in Canada, and he is one of 117 recipients of the Medal of Honor who was born in Canada. And I wanted to certainly mention that at this time before the ceremony ends. And Paul, where are you? Thank you, Paul. In closing here tonight, I want to thank all of you for attending. And if I can find what I was going to say here, I'll say it. In closing, we again thank Tom Kelly for his commitment in promoting the Minnesota Medal of Honor project and the expansion of the character development program throughout the state. As president of the Medal of Honor Society and responsible for representing all living recipients through the country, we are blessed to have Tom's commitment to Minnesota in our memorial. Also, we thank each and every one of you for attending and sharing your evening with us. We so much appreciate your support, and we look forward to keeping you informed and hopefully involved as the memorial project moves forward. And I'll wish you good night in a few minutes after we announce our silent auction winners.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're very excited to have this. This is a wonderful evening. Thank you. Just to wrap up on some final closing moments, we are going to be closing the raffle. So if anybody wants a raffle ticket, Amanda in the gorgeous blue dress that was up here, she's right there. If anyone wants raffle tickets, we've got about 10 minutes before that closes and the silent auction. So please check your bid sheets and safe travels home.